Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
If you decide the right path, or rather we all together collectively decide the right path for you as an IPO, we have people that can sit on your side and help you execute that.
For nearly 30 years, it's been my privilege to serve as the CEO of ICR. And now my role within the company is changing, but what won't change is the incredible value we provide to clients.
How do you have to tell a story in a crowded marketplace and demonstrate how you're on a growth trajectory is critical to your success as a company and as a management team.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. Today's guest is my successor, the new CEO of ICR, Anton Nicholas. Anton joined ICR in 2012. He eventually ran ICR's consumer practice and a couple of years ago was tasked with managing the entire communications effort. He has over 25 years of communications and advisory experience, having served in several senior positions at leading U.S. and international public relations firms. He'll need that experience because he has huge shoes to fill. I'm just kidding. Let's enter the arena with Anton Nicholas. So you've worked at a lot of agencies over the years, which I think is like an advantage because I've only worked at one, ICR. Why is ICR different from other agencies, kind of in the way we're organized and what we do, in your opinion?
Yeah, so, and it sounds cliche, of course, but I think it has to start with the people. A lot of talent across a lot of agencies, but I certainly believe that the team at ICR is incredibly talented, and in particular, bring to the table this capital markets expertise that really doesn't exist in other communications firms. And I think that is the number one thing that distinguishes us and makes us better advisors, right? Which is the other thing that I think is particularly different about us. We want to be in the room for the strategy conversation, and we want to help our clients navigate those opportunities and challenges that are most important in their business, and how we can shape that narrative and work with them to distribute that narrative across all of their important audience is critical. And I think that's something that we do better than anyone else.
Yeah. And I think, whether you're a public or a private company, the goal is still the same, like value creation, particularly a private company that has taken outside capital, right? That's your job, whether you're public or private, it's value creation. So understanding that piece of it is critically important, I think, for every agency. When you first joined 14 years ago, can you remember a moment, like an aha moment, where you're like, wow, this group definitely has something unique on their hands, kind of seeing things through that value creation lens?
Yeah, because, the core of what you founded at ICR, along with Chad Jacobs and John Flanagan, was about exactly what you just said, which was helping companies navigate that Wall Street marketplace, understanding how the Wall Street marketplace had valued them and looked at them. Traditionally, in our world, most of the people that occupied the communication space sort of came out of communications backgrounds and didn't have that Wall Street discipline, practice, experience. And I think that was something that when I first joined was really unique to me, and getting my arms around that and understanding that and then realizing the difference that can make in terms of the value generation was huge. The other thing, of course, is that culturally, because of what we've been through as a firm with the passing of both Chad and John, it was very much, when I got here, still a family business. Yeah. And I think we've maintained that connectivity. And I think that connectivity shows up with our clients as well. It's driven by relationships. It's driven by deeply caring about helping them drive their business so that they can be successful.
Yeah. And we're sitting here in January of 2026 at the ICR conference, and There is lots of hugging going on between the ICR team and clients, and it really is like an unbelievable thing because you just don't see that shit anywhere,
And it's amazing too, right? Because it shows up in the tenure, right? And I tell people a lot about how I'm the person on the senior management team that has the least amount of years at ICR, and I've been here almost 15 years.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Let's start with like StratComs. Talk about the scale we have for those that don't know, the number of clients, kind of what we do every day for boards in the C-suite, in particular CEOs.
Yeah. So, again, when you start with StratComs, you start with strategy and you start with core expertise on the capital market side, as well as the vertical expertise that we bring to the table, vertical industry expertise. That's invaluable to a CEO. Understanding how other companies have behaved in similar situations, understanding how the markets have perceived certain circumstances, announcements, whatever it might be, is critical. A lot of companies that come to us, as you appreciate, it's often event-driven. It's an IPO or it's a transaction or something like that. And we are certainly nimble and move quickly in those situations. But ultimately, what we really excel at is building that narrative and telling that story over time.
Yeah.
And, having that longer term value creation, which is super important, particularly for public companies. But the reality is what we've seen in recent years, helping younger, fast growing companies move towards a transaction of any sort requires all of that activity as well. And it's super important.
Yeah, one thing that I think it's important to mention, I do think I certainly have some self-awareness. We kind of started this business in 1998, focusing on the capital markets and investors and stuff. And so sometimes we get pigeonholed into, hey, they're the IR firm. The reality is highly strategic, stakeholder communications. And that's, I think, important for everyone that is in ICR's orbit to know we're doing, incredible work across business, financial, media, employee comms, crisis preparedness and management, M&A, communications, distress, litigation, governance, all that kind of stuff. Everything around the C-suite that really mitigates risk for management teams and boards and also positions them for value creation. You talked at length about the strategic part. That's why we do it. I just kind of listed what we do, but I think the why is worth spending a little bit more time on. Why should management teams understand how critically important what we do is? And, whether they don't hire us today, they should have us on speed dial. The why is very important. Why don't you talk about that?
The reality of the world that we live in today is that it's incredibly crowded. It's really noisy. There's an integrated audience, right? We always joke. I tell the story about how when I joined this business, we used to fax earnings releases to the sell side. Most of the people on my team don't even know what a fax is.
Yeah.
So if you're in that marketplace that is covered by noise, and you are out there trying to tell a story, and that story can apply to your customers, it can apply to consumers, it can apply to your employee base, and of course, it can apply to the investment community as well. You have to be intentional, you have to be smart and sound and back it up. And that story has to be told across channels. It has to be consistent. And it has to demonstrate how the business is achieving its goals from a business objective standpoint. That is part of the strategy piece of it. And then, of course, it blends into the execution. And I think that's what's really interesting about what we do today. To your point, you listed off all these incredible services that we have. And we bring that bundle, that basket to the table in our engagements where you hire ICR to be your strategic communications advisor. And we pull the levers of all those different tactical execution practices in your best interest to protect, project, and build reputation.
Yeah. And we always talk about ICR as kind of a category of one. While we do a lot of things that other agencies do, A, we do it differently. B, we do some other things. One of them is ICR Capital, which is very unique. Maybe you can talk about what ICR Capital is and what they do every day.
It's incredible that a communications firm has something like ICR Capital, where we have experts that come out of ECM, investment banking, and that can sit on the side of the client and the client sponsor and help them navigate some of the most important transactions that will exist in their business. So whether it's convertible debt, restructuring or bond, whether it's an IPO, you have people that are on your team that are only incentivized as advisors to you to help you navigate that situation. That's exactly what capital does. It is absolutely grounded in capital markets expertise and advice, and it helps clients manage stuff because, we love investment banks, but they are conflicted in many ways on those transactions. And what's really interesting about that business is that it's treated separately. It's a registered broker-dealer, so we can actually charge our fees out of the banking spreads so that there's no cost to the clients themselves, which is a huge advantage. And it operates as a different business in many ways. But what's really interesting for us is that it was largely born out of the fact that we had all these incredible relationships across different companies and referral sources. And so it was like a logical next step for us to be in this business.
Yeah, I think the other logical part of it is our services tend to be built for kind of small, fast-growing companies. Small is a relative term, but let's say, 500 million to 20 billion, they're growing, they need capital or whatever. So, hey, every transaction raising money is incredibly important. How you communicate that, how you communicate what you're going to do with the use of proceeds and how that's going to filter in down through a growth plan or, how it goes down the P&L into like long-term earnings growth is critically important. So in a way, they might seem like different business, but they actually fit together, and they actually fit together at ICR under the umbrella in a very nice way.
And it's circular, right? If you're a growing private company, you need to build awareness. You need to get out there and tell your story in advance of any sort of transaction. And if you decide the right path, or rather we all together collectively decide the right path for you as an IPO, we have people that can sit on your side and help you execute that. And then we have people that pick you up as a public company and help you with your financial communications as you continue to tell that story. And if you need to do a convert, we have people that can help you do that. And that's the nature of the business, and that's the nature of being capital markets experts like we are and operating within the communications space. The two businesses just are very complementary that way.
Yeah, you brought up private companies. Maybe talk a little bit about how we can help private equity. I think a lot of people perceive us wrongly that we're kind of only involved with public companies. We have tons of private companies. How do we help them?
It's interesting, right? Because we're at the ICR conference.
Yep.
3,000 people, everything from private companies, public companies, private equity, investors, bankers, sell-side analysts, et cetera, right? And we operate at that nexus of the Wall Street universe. And when you think of private equity, they operate at the nexus of that Wall Street universe as well, right? So there's two main ways that we work with them. One is with their fund reputation management themselves. So in other words, helping them navigate any kind of situations that they may have, whether it's they're raising a fund, maybe they have a portfolio company that's going through some challenges, whatever it might be. We can help manage that reputation. The other, which is really interesting, is sort of thinking through how to help manage their portfolio companies. If you work with private equity and you understand their mindset and you understand how they operate, guess what? You can help private companies navigate the landscape to advance towards a transaction. We call it liquidity communications. We pull all the levers of what we talked about at the conference on behalf of the sponsors for those companies as they look to transact. It might not be an IPO, it might just be a sale.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a SPAC, who knows?
Yeah, and listen, that happens every day. We had a company recently that was owned by Goldman Sachs, and they were on the IPO trail forever. It never happened. They sold to a strategic. We were able to come in and do the communications around that M&A deal where we dealt with the press, we dealt with employees of both companies. And when there's a merger between two companies, every employee is like, what does this mean for me? And that's just one stakeholder group, suppliers and customers and all that. It's a highly choreographed thing. It's very impressive. And I think for private equity firms that might be listening to this, whether, you're taking a company public or selling it, it's the same approach, right?
It is. It's about, again, go back to where we started this conversation. It's about defining that story, defining that narrative, telling it, building reputation, building awareness, such that you can maximize your value, whether it is, again, as a private equity sponsor-backed company selling, or whether it's someone going public, or frankly, whether it's a public company. How do you have to tell a story in a crowded marketplace and demonstrate how you're on a growth trajectory is critical to your success as a company and as a management team?
I think that in observing your career at ICR, I think your superpower is you're like an amazing culture builder and just like team builder. And that's the key to this business. It's building great teams that care, that are engaged with clients, that are just like super into it. You did that in our consumer group, which is our biggest group. As CEO, how do you bring the culture of that consumer group across every one of these like industry groups that we have and help the people who run that kind of build those teams and get that energy?
Look, first and foremost, I'm a loudmouth.
For sure.
The culture was here. The culture exists. We live and breathe it every day. I think what I've been successful at is really championing it and getting it out there and leaning into it and talking about it and talking about the value of our people and the importance of our people and how we want to invest in and train, attract, and retain people, right? So if you think about consumer, what we were doing there, loudmouth, cheerleader.
Yeah, pump people up,
put them in positions to succeed, understand where it's okay that we have weaknesses, but we can rely on each other for complementary skill set, complementary expertise, so that we bring a product to the marketplace. So, a suite of services, a solution to our clients that is holistic and is strong across the board, right? So I think it's part cheerleader. And, look, there's some part demanding more of people, asking people to be their best selves, and obviously recognizing them when they do that. And I think that's something that we did in consumer and have been doing across the firm. And now we're just going to continue to prioritize that.
100%. So we talked about like the what and the why and the culture of ICR and kind of what we can do to protect companies, to build credibility, to build reputation. Do you have like a case study that pops into your mind that, you could maybe redact the name or you could say the name if it's old enough, that kind of brings this to life for people about what we do?
I mean, the amazing thing about ICR is we have tons of these case studies.
Yeah.
For all of our vertical industry practices, technology, healthcare, energy, financial services, and real estate, consumer, we could pick a number of them out of the hat. For me, because, over 14 years, I largely focused in the consumer space, as you know, there's a couple really great ones. I think of an Olo, for example, right? Online ordering. Noah Glass, fantastic guy, super smart guy, starts this business. They're basically pre-revenue. They have like a couple of clients and they're trying to figure out what to do before anyone's ever heard of online ordering.
Yeah.
And he hires us. And we work with him for like 8 years as a small private company out there telling his story, shaping the narrative, using the press, using the conference, our conference, using other conferences for him to be on a panel at first because no one knows who he is, to being a speaker years later because everyone wants to be him, right?
No one knows who he is and he looks like he's 21.
Exactly. And he still looks like he's 21. Yeah. So you think about that journey with that small private company and they continue to grow and they define a space. They change an industry, right? Restaurants are now hiring them left and right.
Yeah.
They've gone through several rounds and we're doing announcements with them on that. Now they're a pre-IPO company. Then they're an IPO company. And we're guiding them through that process. Our capital team's involved. Our StratComs team's involved. Now they're a public company.
Yeah.
And we're doing all of the financial communications for them. And they have crises and they have reputation threats and things like this. And then they go through a buyout. Now they're a private company again. And guess what? We're back to doing private company communications for them.
Yeah, I think, and the other thing, it's like Noah's a friend now. And I mean, look, who knows what happens in the future, but whatever happens, like we have his back. And I think that's how we feel about like every client.
And he knows that, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, no one has ever been a better referral for us than Noah Glass. He's got our back. And I think that, again, like you can't emphasize enough the culture of caring and relationship building and having each other's back. And we do that as an organization for each other as a team, and we do that for our clients. And again, it's going to sound cliche, and I'm okay with that because we know that it makes sense and we know that it works.
We have 450 people, team members working around the world. What do those people need to know about you that they don't know already?
What do they need to know about me? I care deeply, deeply about John and Chad's legacy. I never met them, but I feel like I know them so well. And it's something that I want to make sure we all continue to remember. at this firm.
Yep.
Because it's super important. And it's something that you emphasized, lived, breathed as you built this firm to what it is, which is incredible when I think about it. I also care deeply about what we do because I actually think it's really important. I think a lot of people dismiss communications as being publicists.
Right.
And that's fine. There's a huge world of very profitable businesses that are publicists. This is not what we do. What we do is integral to helping businesses be the best business they can be and servicing their important constituents.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to be proud of.
In the beginning, we talked about strategy. Writing press releases is a commodity, all that stuff. Strategy is hugely important. The other thing that we bring to the table that I think comes with scale, when you have 1,000 clients and 8,000 board members and you've been in business for almost 30 years, you have a sick network. We're sitting here at the ICR conference. There's 3,000 people here. It's our LinkedIn page, like in person, and just a fraction of it. However, it is in person. It's building relationships. It's people having a drink together. Talk about how our relationships can benefit current or future clients.
Some of it is matchmaking. Some of it is putting two people, companies, audiences together that can benefit each other, right? Some of it is at the core of what we do. So go back to the Olo case study of bringing them to the conference, of making sure that sell-side analysts that were covering the restaurant space were meeting Olo while they were a private company, and then asking restaurant companies on earnings calls whether they had heard of Olo and what they were doing on online ordering, whether it's executing a bake-off or an IPO mandate that we might have in capital. So, I mean, at the end of the day, relationships are huge. We all know that. And being able to utilize the platform for helping people with their businesses. One example that I always come back to is, we have a lot of restaurant and retail tech clients, like an Olo, for example. And when we're at the conference, we open the book and introduce them to all of our large restaurant and retail companies that are here. They may not end up doing business with them, but we're giving them the entree into doing that, which I think is really important as well. The last thing, of course, is there's a ton of media here.
Yeah.
And, we utilize the press as an opportunity to tell the story to the widest audience possible. And those are really relationship driven. It's hard in this day and age where reporters are distracted and they're working on tons of different stories to get their attention. And it's really all about who you know and how you know them.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to that is companies are being bought and sold here right now. We don't even know about it.
Because we're definitely not getting a fee for it.
It's your problem now to figure out how to get paid for that.
We agreed we were never going to say it was my problem.
Yeah. Beyond the admission, the cost of admission, it'd be great to get a vig off of that. But that is happening. Number two, these dinners that you and I are doing over the 3 days, I hope that becomes a tradition because I think it's pretty cool if you have, dinner with 10 people, 10 CEOs, and maybe there's a banker or private equity, whoever's in there. You never know what happens when you sit somebody next to each other, like who they know. It's really cool.
Particularly if they don't know each other beforehand, right? And
even
so
better.
The way we've curated these dinners that we're doing is like we've got individuals that maybe know one or two other people, but don't know the other 8 people. And that's pretty cool.
If we can brand it, maybe we can bring a sponsor in for the dinner too, like brought to you by who knows, some wealth management company or something.
A lot of red wine.
When you look out 3 to 5 years, looking at what we have now, where we could go, what do you think the future is for us in the next 3 to 5 years?
This is such a great business.
Yeah.
It already is a great business. The thing is that it's an amazing platform. Based on the relationships, based on the kinds of companies that we currently work with, based on the talent that we have and our ability to attract more talent and fill some of the gaps and opportunities that we have, I'm committed to doubling this business in the next 3 to 5 years, and I absolutely think we will. We still have people that come to this conference, Tom, that think we're a conference organizer.
I know.
You know what I mean?
That's on me.
So we have this huge opportunity to tell people about who we are and what we do. And we have a captive client base that's willing to champion that for us. And I think that creates massive opportunities. I think there are people that want to work with us because they know how good we are at the work we do. There's adjacent businesses that we're not in, that we can be in, that are relatable. That's a massive opportunity for us. And then if you think about currently 90% of our revenue is domestic US.
I know.
And everybody wants to come to the US markets now. A lot of European companies are skipping their home territories because there's no scale in listing in Switzerland. And London has, crushed itself with Brexit and everything else. And so these companies all want to come to the US. And that's massive opportunity for us to continue to expand.
That was Anton Nicholas, the new CEO of ICR. He's carrying the torch forward. He has a great plan, and he's a great rallier of people and a great builder of culture. I couldn't be more happy to see him in that seat. I can't wait to work with him over the next several years and look forward to sitting down with him for an update at next year's conference. I'm Tom Ryan, and we'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.